Thank you for coming to the Intel AI Lounge and joining us here for this Autonomous World event. Let's talk to our panelists about some of the areas in which they have expertise. So first for Michelle, I'll ask, many of us probably buy stuff online every day, every week, every hour, with hourly delivery now. So a lot has been written about sort of the death of traditional retail experiences. How will artificial intelligence and the technology that your company has sort of rejuvenate that retail experience, whether it be online or in a traditional brick and mortar store?
So right now, most of the artificial intelligence that's being applied in the retail space is actually not something that shoppers like you and I see when we're on a website or when we're in the store. It's actually happening behind the scenes. It's happening to dynamically change the web page to show you different stuff. It's happening to further up the supply chain, right? With how the products are getting manufactured, put together, packed, shipped, delivered to you, and that efficiency is just helping retailers be smarter and more effective with their budgets. And so as they can save money, right, in the supply chain, as they can sell more products with less work, they can reinvest in experience, they can reinvest in the brands, they can reinvest in the quality of the products. So we might start noticing those things change, but you won't actually know that that has anything to do with artificial intelligence because it's not always in a robot that's rolling up to you in an aisle.
Okay. So you mentioned the supply chain, and Suresh, that's something that we hear about a lot. But frankly, for most of us, I think it's very hard to understand what exactly that means. So could you educate us a bit on what exactly is the supply chain and how is artificial intelligence being applied to improve it?
Sure. So when you go to a store and you're buying a pair of shoes or you're picking up a box of cereal, how often do we think about how did it ever make its way here? You know, were the constituent components, they probably came from multiple countries, and so they had to be manufactured, they had to be assembled in these plants, they had to then be moved either through ocean vessel or through trucks. They probably have gone through multiple warehouses and distribution centers and then finally into the store. And what do we see? We want to make sure that when I go to pick up my favorite brand of cereal, it better be there. And so one of the things where AI is going to help, and we're doing a lot of active work in this, is in the notion of the self-learning supply chain. And what that means is really bringing in these various assets and actors of the supply chain, first of all, through IoT and others, generating the data, obviously connecting them, and through AI, deriving the intelligence so that I can dynamically, figure out the fact that the ocean vessel that left China on its way to Long Beach has been delayed by 24 hours. What does that mean when you go to a Foot Locker to buy your new pair of shoes? Can I come up with alternate sourcing decisions? So it's not just predicting, it's prescribing and recommending as well. So behind the scenes, bringing in generating a lot of the data, connecting a lot of these actors, and then really deriving the smarts. That's what the self-learning supply chain is all about.
Okay. So Joe, as you look at companies out there to partner or potentially acquire, do you tend to see technologies that are very domain specific, sort of like for retail or supply chain, or do you see technologies that could bridge multiple different domains in terms of the experiences we could enjoy?
Yeah, definitely. So both. A lot of infant technologies start out in very niche use cases, but then there are technologies that are pervasive across multiple geographies and multiple markets. So smart cities is a good way to look at that, right? You have your little city that's a real world that sits here, okay? So this is reality, and you have little buildings and cars, and they all travel around, and you have people walking around with cell phones. And what's happening is, as we develop smart cities, we're putting sensors everywhere. We're putting them around, utilities, energies, water. So we have all these different sensors, and they're not just cameras and microphones, but they're particulate sensors, okay? They're able to do environmental monitoring, things like that. And so what we have is we have this physical world with all these sensors here, and then what we have, basically this virtual world that has a great memory because it has all the data from all those sensors. And those sensors really act as ties. If you think of it like a quilt, tying a quilt together, you bring it down together, and everywhere you have a stitch, you're stitching that virtual world on top of the physical world. And that just enables incredible amounts of innovation and creation.
Yeah, there's definitely a social acceptance angle to this technology, right? Many of us technologists in the room, right, it's kind of easier for us to sort of understand what the technology is, how it works, how it was created. But for many of our friends and family, they don't, right? So there's a social acceptance angle to this. So Michelle, as you see this technology kind of deployed in retail environments, which is a space where almost every person in every country goes, How do you think about making it feel comfortable for people to interact with this kind of technology and not be sort of afraid of the robots or the machines sort of behind the curtain?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think that user experience always has to come first.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're if you're using AI for AI's sake or for the cool factor or the wow factor, you're already doing it wrong. Again, it needs to solve a problem. And what I tend to tell people who are like, oh my God, like, AI sounds so scary, we can't let this happen. I'm like, it's already happening and you're already liking it. You just don't know, right? Because it's invisible in a lot of ways. So if you can point out those scenarios where AI has already benefited you and it wasn't scary because it was a friendly kind of interaction, and you might not even realize it was there, versus like something that looks so different and like panic driving. I think that's why the driverless car thing is a big deal, because you're so used to seeing, in America at least, someone on the left side of the car in the front seat.
Yeah.
And not seeing that is like, whoa, crazy. So I think that it starts with the experience and making it an acceptable kind of interface or format that doesn't give you that, oh my God, something is wrong here kind of feeling.
All right, well, thank you everyone. Really appreciate your time. Thank you for joining Intel here in the AI Lounge at Autonomous World. We hope you've enjoyed the panel, and we wish you a great rest of your event here at South by Southwest.